Welcome back, Toddler Tribe, to a very special episode of the Transforming the Toddler Years podcast. If you are watching on our YouTube channel, then you already know the surprise. But if you are on Spotify or any other audio streaming, I'm going to make you hold on just an extra second. This is just too good. And I honestly have waited my entire life for this. You know that this podcast is about 2.5 years old. So it's in its toddlerhood, which I think is just perfectly fitting. And I've interviewed about 170 guests. Today's guest is easily my favorite by far, and I'm 300% biased. My daughter, Caroline, is here on the show with us today. And I've told you repeatedly that my kids were the first iteration of what it meant to parent differently, and that, there's a literal lifetime between the impact we have in those birth to 5 years and what happens when they are 18, 20, 22 years old. And I'm blessed enough to be in a space where my kids are that age and they're able to share with me some things that I say, yeah, that was a really special part of your childhood. And they're also able to share honestly with me about things that maybe I could have done better. So, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, I would like to start today. Now, you all know that we just have organic conversations here at this show. There's nothing scripted. And I want to reiterate what I said to you last night, which is you have full permission to say anything. Maybe it'll make my heart tingle and maybe it'll make my heart prickle. And either one is 100% fine, because one of the foundational truths about raising you was that I wanted you to always feel safe to be who you are and speak your own truth. So the first thing we're going to start with today is my personalized parenting mission statement. Did you even know I wrote one?
Not until you told me.
Yeah. I believe that I believe parenting's a mission, and I believe that it was mine, that God put me on this earth to be a mother. And I knew that at a very, very young age. You knew that. So when it came time for me to actually be a mom, when I was pregnant with your sister, Emma Grace, my goal is to raise confident, independent, socially well-adjusted children who have the skills they need to grow into adults, who can embrace who they are, advocate for themselves, and take responsibility for their choices, while simultaneously bringing compassion and empathy to their relationships in all settings they live and work in, therefore adding value to the world. This was my Northern Star during your childhood, and every time we'd bump up against something hard, I'd come back to, what is the character building opportunity here, or what is the skill building opportunity, and how do I help my daughter get there?
I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, let me ask you a question then. As you look at those words, confident, independent, socially well-adjusted, do you feel that you are all those things as an adult?
Yeah, I think there's aspects that you have to work on yourself. There's only so much that you can do as a parent, but you have to take this step yourself to learn those things as well.
I agree with that.
Especially like me leaving America was a big step for me. It was hard, but I was still depending on you a lot. So now I can freely do everything myself.
For listeners who don't know, Caroline got on a plane at 18 years old and moved to Japan. And the fact that she is literally sitting next to me right now in our studio is kind of a miracle, because she's been gone 2 years. So those 2 years of being 18, turning 19 and turning 20 while over there, you had to take full responsibility for your entire life.
You did help me with school stuff, but that's something that I felt like I had to keep you informed about because you are my mom and like keep you and dad informed about it as just parents and keeping that trust in the relationship. But there's also a lot of things that I haven't told you because just I wasn't with you and it was just in the moment I had to deal with it.
And that level of separation is part of becoming an adult.
Yeah.
I guess nowadays we call it adulting. But were there things you didn't tell me because you thought I would worry from the other side of the world?
Yes. But also just they were so small sometimes that if I went out of my way to tell you those things, then I would be wasting my time.
That makes sense. So, one of the things that happened, because resilience is something I really always wanted to
Mm.
foster in my girls, and building resilience means that you actually have to go through the hard stuff. And I had to allow you to
Mm-hmm.
go through the hard stuff without solving your problems for you, loving you, but not solving your problems for you. And when you got to Japan, your plan completely fell apart and you entered a life of instant resilience. Can you tell us what happened?
Sure. The plan was to do volunteer farm work, which is like called woofing. It's an international company where you live and stay at someone's house and they feed you and it's good. I was gonna stay at this lady's house for about 1 month, but I had a job set up to be an au pair, like a nanny, and it fell through. They just stopped responding to me. So I had to talk to the lady I was staying with, and she said I could stay longer. And in that time, me and her relationship grew a lot, and she kind of took me in as her granddaughter because she didn't have anybody like that in her life. And then from there, I moved to Tokyo into a dormitory to start school. I was jobless for at least 3 months before I found a job through my church. And I've kind of moved jobs every once in a while, and I'm currently transitioning to a new job when I go back. It was quite a blow, but I'm very thankful for Fumiko-san for being in my life. And now I'm living back with her as a her full time helper, and she feeds me, and we love each other. So
I know how I felt when you sent me a message and I read the words.
mm,
The nanny job, the au pair job fell through.
I was just confused. I didn't know what to do, and so that's why I had to have a conversation with Fumiko-san. I didn't want to. I had to. There was the option of me going to another woofing spot before I started college. I felt like it was right to stay there, and I'm really glad I did because it gave me time to figure things out and to just have to trust in God that the right job would come along and I would learn from each job. And I definitely did learn from my first job about not letting people take advantage of me. And I had to quit for the first time in my life, but that was also a big, hard conversation for me to have.
You
But
know,
it was taken really well by the boss, and I'm very thankful for that.
so let's go that avenue for a second because you know that intentional language is very important to me. The way we talk to each other is that foundation of our relationship. And you had brand new relationships
Yeah,
with Famuka-san. You had brand new relationships with your boss. How did you find the courage to have these challenging conversations?
I prayed about it. I am a very religious person, and I think that's helped me get through a lot of things because I don't always have you and dad to depend on, but I do have God to depend on, and He will always be there for me. And He's brought all the opportunities into my life but I just had to be patient and wait and listen, and I'm totally fine with people who aren't religious, and it's everyone's choice, but for me that's really helped me get through these hard conversations and have to be uncomfortable sometimes. I remember you said to me, you said, you won't make any progress if you're not uncomfortable. Or it was along the lines, I don't know if those exact words, but something like that. And then I've definitely learned that. I have to put myself in uncomfortable situations sometimes to see the truth that is trying to be revealed for me and for growth.
Absolutely. Yeah, we grow when we are in the uncomfortable outside of that comfort zone. And sometimes we choose it and say that looks like an opportunity for growth. And other times it chooses us.
But I also think it's important because if I didn't go to Japan and I wasn't in those uncomfortable situations, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to come back and be not a different Caroline, but a more open and honest and loving person to the people around me and more understanding. And I really wasn't that when I left. And I've changed a lot, and I think people can see it.
You have. You have always been loving, kind, empathetic, compassionate. In fact, almost to a fault, you would put other people's needs before your own. What I see as your growth is that you've leaned into your best version of yourself and you now own who you are. And you love people just as much. That's your heart. But you also love yourself.
I wouldn't say I love myself, but I love how God has sharpened me because I couldn't do this alone. I don't think anyone can do it alone. And it takes all the people that are brought into my life to get me where I am. Confidence is definitely important, but I think you could agree that I've always been confident in who I am as a person.
Yes.
And that is very unique to me and to Dad as well. We're very similar in that sense, where we knew what we liked and who we were from a very young age. So the area where I struggled the most was physically being confident. I still struggle with it sometimes, but I think internally being confident has never been a problem for me.
Thank you for clarifying that because you're absolutely right. Yeah, we used to say Caroline was born knowing who she was. And it's a really beautiful thing to know your soul so early in life. But it did also, as other people were going through developmental phases, it kind of like jammed you up a little because you were like, how come they don't get this?
Yeah. So people would say I was very wise for my age, but it wasn't really wisdom. It was just I was a bit ahead of people in certain aspects, especially high school, especially. Yeah. But I'm okay with that, and I'm glad that things happen the way they happen because now I can have very deep conversations with people my age, and I've always been able to have deep conversations with older people.
So, one of the things that was a challenge when you were growing up was getting outside that comfort zone. You felt very safe here in this house. You felt very safe here in this town. And you would tell us all the time, I'm never leaving.
I'm going to buy the house next door.
Right. I'm going to buy the house next door so that I can be close. I remember very vividly Camp Keewaydin, sixth grade year. Going for those overnights away with your class was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
We had to do a lot of compromising in order for you to even feel safe enough to take the step to do it. How the heck did you go from someone who said, this is my entire world in Southern Vermont, to someone who now lives in Japan?
I think it was, even in high school, I was very against leaving. But there came like a Spain trip opportunity for 11th graders, and what they were saying sounded really fun. And I still was very stuck in my head about just wanting to stay comfortable. But then I don't know what it was, but it was like something just clicked in me where I was just thinking to myself, I think it was like working out or something one day. And just in my mind, I hear the words like, if you don't ever try, you'll never experience it, or
Ooh,
something like that.